Hello and welcome to our webinar on menopause and building a menopause inclusive culture. My name is Sofia and I'm a mental health trainer at Menopause. Today's webinar is all about the importance of supporting women who are experiencing the menopause in the workplace. So we will look at recognizing the risk of poor mental health due to the menopause, and most importantly, how to reduce that risk with practical steps to embed a compassionate culture, inclusive policy, and effective mental health strategies throughout the organization. I must admit that I am in my 30s and I don't have a personal experience of menopause quite yet, but I do have lived experience of mental health difficulties. And I have a lot of experience of working in mental health services and in crisis services. And I saw firsthand how much menopause can affect women and their mental health. So a quick introduction to our charity. We are Mind and Mid Hearts. We provide prevention, recovery, and support services in Hertfordshire. We want to empower people to take control of their mental health. We are affiliated with National Minds, but we're a charity in our own rights, working here locally with people. So we do our own fundraising, have our own volunteering opportunities, and we provide our own services. So that means that any income that we make through training goes back to helping people in your local community. Quick note on housekeeping. This webinar is scheduled to take 45 minutes, but the presentation part will be about half an hour. So we'll have plenty of time for a Q&A at the end. And the session's being recorded and will be publicly available. So our learning objectives for today are such that by the end of the session, the attendees will be able to understand the impact that the menopause can have in the workplace. So they'll be able to recognize the prevalence and risk factors that are associated with poor mental health due to the menopause in working age women. They'll also understand the legal and ethical duty of care of employers and know a little bit more about the safety and employment law. Identify some practical organizational strategies to reduce the risk of poor mental health. So learn how to mitigate the risk through culture, line manager training, anti-bullying frameworks, and early intervention systems. And finally, promote protective practice in the workplace. So understand how to create an environment that reduces isolation and supports mental well-being long-term. So firstly, I'd like to start with some definitions so that we're very clear about what we're talking about. Menopause is defined as a biological stage in life that occurs when menstruation stops and the natural reproductive cycle ends. So it's usually defined as having occurred after 12 months of no periods. And perimenopause is the time that leads up to the menopause when changes may be experienced. So people might see irregular periods or other menopausal symptoms, and this can happen years before the actual menopause. So I'd like to add a quick note that it's not just women that are affected by menopause. It is mostly women, but there is also trans men and non-binary people who can go through menopause as well. However, this training does focus on women's experiences. So a few quick facts. Most women experience the menopause between the ages of 45 and 55, but it can happen earlier than that. And over 75% of women experience menopausal symptoms, and these numbers vary depending on the source you look at. Some sources say even 90% of women, and 25% of those women describe their symptoms as severe, which I found quite surprising that 1 in 4 women experiences severe symptoms. And in a second, we'll talk about what those are, and I imagine that that must be very disruptive. A third of women experience long-term symptoms that may last 7 years or longer. But yeah, more than a third of women will experience symptoms that last a few years. And women over 55 are the fastest growing group in the UK workforce. So women who may be experiencing menopausal symptoms or have gone through the menopause are a big group in the UK workforce. So this problem the fact that menopause can really affect mental health and cause women difficulties in the workplace, it's something that's going to affect more and more people in the workforce. So what are those symptoms? Firstly, something that is simply asked for first when deciding whether someone's becoming perimenopausal is changes to their periods. If, for example, they become irregular while they were regular before, if they become heavier or lighter, then this is usually a sign of menopause coming. And of course, eventually they will stop altogether. And something that I think everyone associates with the menopause is hot flushes and night sweats. So the sudden feeling of hot or cold in your face, neck and chest, which can make people dizzy, and they can be quite disruptive, I think, especially in the workplace where often people don't want anyone to notice, and if they're suddenly feeling really hot, it can be sometimes quite embarrassing and disruptive to their concentration. However, while hot flushes are the symptom that everyone hears about, it's actually the case that mental health symptoms are the most common symptoms of menopause. And in a second, we'll have a slide with some stats which support that. So symptoms such as low mood, anxiety, low self-worth, mood swings, and brain fog. All of these are mental health symptoms, and they are the most commonly reported symptoms of menopause. And when you think about it, this can really have such a huge effect on women. Some women who have never struggled with their mental health before are noticing that they really have difficulty with anxiety or depression for the first time ever when they're reaching that age, which if you can imagine, especially if you have never had to manage this before, how disorientating that must be. And low self-worth is a symptom of menopause in general. It can happen to people that their confidence is undermined, but there's also other symptoms of menopause that can affect self-worth. So, for example, someone suffering with brain fog and suddenly struggling to concentrate at work, where they may have been very confident before, is now feeling like less confident at work, and it affects their self-worth. Or, for example, I think I'll mention in a second, like menopause can be related to weight gain. For some people, if that's something that really upsets them, that they're gaining weight, this can affect their confidence and self-esteem as well. So there's like a lot of those symptoms will interact with each other. Another symptoms is difficulty sleeping. This can be related to night sweats, but it can just be a symptom on its own where women start suffering with insomnia. Heart palpitations are very common, so very fast heart rates, which especially combined with anxiety, if someone hasn't experienced this before, can be a very scary experience. Women are also more likely to get headaches and migraines that are worse than usual, get muscle aches, joint pains, and as I mentioned, changes to body shape and weight gain. And these are not all of the symptoms of menopause that there are. There are some sources say that there are over 100 recognized symptoms. Some other examples are changes to the skin, including dry and itchy skin, reduced sex drive, vaginal dryness and pain, discomfort during sex, recurrent urinary tract infections, sensitive teeth, painful gums or other mouth problems, and many others. So as you can imagine, if you're experiencing especially severe symptoms, which is 1 in 4 women, how disruptive that can be. So that's why it matters. It's not only can be very severe, it's also a very common problem. 67% of women report psychological symptoms. So as I said, that's the most common reported symptoms, more common even than hot flushes. And 48% of women who experience hormonal symptoms of menopause have not spoken to anyone at work about this subject. So menopause is still somehow a taboo. And imagine if your mood is really suffering, if maybe you're suffering, like you're going through mood swings, if you can't sleep, if you're getting all of these physical symptoms, imagine how isolating it would be if you're at work and no one even knows about it. And yet, few organizations have strategies in place to protect the mental well-being of women who go through menopause. In fact, only a quarter of women say that the organization has a stated menopause policy or any other measures in place. So this leaves a substantial 43% that don't have anything and a third that don't know about it. So organizations that do have support are more likely to have written policies and menopause support networks. But there's a lot of organizations that still don't have anything in place. And 2/3 of women, so 67%, who experience menopausal symptoms say that they've had a negative effect at work. And over half have had to take time off because of their symptoms. So that's again something that surprises me, how big that number is, that so many women were unable to go to work because their symptoms were so severe. 1 in 6 people have considered leaving work due to a lack of support in relation to their menopause symptoms, and a further 6% have left work. So when we think about how this affects businesses, it's just a huge number of people that can be affected. Almost 4 million women aged 45 to 55 are in work in the UK. So this employee group represents a significant and growing section of the workforce. So it's very unlikely that the menopause or perimenopause doesn't affect your workforce in some way. And how does this affect those women? Well, it's quite likely that we will see increased absenteeism and presenteeism, either due to physical symptoms or oftentimes to cope with anxiety, depression, or overwhelming stress. And as we mentioned, some of the women who experience the menopause are not supported, consider leaving their roles, which leads to the higher turnover of staff. This can be really costly, and you simply lose amazing, experienced people and have to hire someone else and train them up. There's also potential for decreased productivity because of the lack of concentration. So, for example, menopause can cause brain fog that's characterized by memory lapses and difficulty concentrating, and this can lead to mistakes and reduced efficiency. So in addition, there's sleep disturbances. So night sweats and insomnia can lead to chronic fatigue. So that further impairs cognitive functions and decreases productivity. And another thing to think about is all those mood symptoms. So women might be irritable and a little bit more unpredictable with their mood swings, and that can strain professional relationships, causing misunderstandings and conflict with colleagues. Additionally, fatigue and emotional challenges can lead women to withdraw from social activities or team events, and this further would isolate them and reduce workplace camaraderie. So employers have a legal duty of care, and beyond this, they have a moral duty and should treat mental health as seriously as physical health. So let's talk a little bit more about the employer's legal and ethical duty of care. Under the Health and Safety at Work Act, employers must protect their employees' well-being, and that includes mental health. Well, the Equality Act forbids discrimination on the basis of protected characteristics. So discriminating against someone who is going through the menopause could amount to sex, age, or disability discrimination. The Equality Act is also the act that provides for reasonable accommodations that we will talk about in the next slides. However, there are examples of employment tribunal claims where women have been unfairly treated due to the menopause because this duty of care in the Health and Safety at Work Act has not been carried out properly. So, for example, Ms. Merchant was being performance managed for capability concerns at BT, and her manager had received a report from her GP which indicated that there were health issues related to menopause. However, he chose to disregard this medical evidence, and dismissed her for poor performance. He relied on his own personal experience of his wife having undergone the menopause instead of relying on the medical evidence. So the courts found that BT was at fault for failing to follow the capability policy. It also concluded that BT would not have treated a male in comparable circumstances if he was suffering with failed concentration in the same way. So this was considered unlawful sex discrimination. And in another case, the claimant at Bon Marsh felt that she was forced to resign as a result of being bullied due to the menopause. So later she was successful in her claim of age and sex discrimination. Unfortunately, these are not isolated events. They show us that a lack of policies and understanding can lead to women who are going through the menopause and perimenopause to being unfairly treated. And this can not only be financially costly, but also damage the company's reputation. And most importantly, it's simply not morally okay for women to be bullied or discriminated against or dismissed because they're going through menopause. So I've mentioned the Equality Act and the fact that menopause might be considered a disability. So the Equality Act allows for reasonable adjustments, which are changes that remove or reduce a disadvantage related to someone's disability in the workplace. And menopause is considered a disability if it has a substantial and long-term adverse effect on a person's ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. So it means that it lasts longer than a year, and the effect is substantial. So it's not a minor or trivial effect. Normal day-to-day activities can simply mean interacting with others, concentrating or managing daily tasks. So if these criteria are met, employers are legally required to make reasonable adjustments to support the employee. This can include changes to working hours, responsibilities, or the physical work environment. So menopause, as I mentioned, can be related to so many symptoms, and there are some simple things, simple adjustments that can be made in the workplace to help manage them. So for example, fresh air is a really simple thing that can be done. For example, allowing an employee a workstation that's near a window or a door, or simply providing someone with a fan. And also small changes to the dress code, relaxing the dress code a little bit to allow for more comfortable clothing, or for simply kind of lighter, breezier clothing. And we do have to remember that there should be a good access to a toilet that's close by, and that kind of visits to the toilet are not monitored in any way. It's important also to allow for a little bit more of a flexible approach to working hours if someone is really struggling with their sleep, for example, or if their concentration has changed so that they can better concentrate at different hours. So if the work schedule at your company allows for that, then flexible hours can be really helpful. It can also be very useful to provide some quiet spaces for rest breaks. So in general, allowing for more rest and short breaks to be incorporated during the day can really help with people's mood and people's concentration. Another way is to provide noise cancelling headphones so that people are better able to concentrate in loud workspaces. It can also be really helpful to promote activities such as yoga, meditation, or exercise classes because they can help alleviate some menopause symptoms and they just improve overall well-being. So another thing that can be also is some nutritional counseling or healthy eating programs so that they can support women in managing their diets and kind of coping better with menopausal symptoms. And finally, something that I know now a lot of employers are trying to kind of limit, but a lot of the time remote working can really help women manage symptoms such as hot flushes, fatigue, or mood swings because they can just be more comfortable in their own environment. And commuting can be particularly stressful during menopause, so having more remote working options especially for those days where the symptoms are more severe, can be incredibly helpful. So that was kind of simple, reasonable adjustments that can be introduced. And now to talk a bit more broadly about what organizations can do. For example, the most important thing at first is just to remember that employees' welfare should be embedded into the core business strategy. So creating a mentally healthy work environment should be a priority and not an afterthought. And that includes making sure that policies are adaptable and inclusive. It's a good idea to have them in place specifically around the menopause if you don't already. And it's worth remembering that policies are useful for employees, but they're also a very useful guidance for managers. So supporting managers in understanding policies that you have in place can be really helpful. But policies and strategies are a great way to start. But we are hearing that some women feel like this is more of a tick box exercise and they're not being supported beyond this. So it's essential to consider further support. And firstly, it can be really useful to train line managers on both the menopause and in general mental health so that they can consider the menopause with compassion and empathy and be more prepared to have those important conversations. Bullying and harassment can also have a huge impact on people's mental health and can contribute to people feeling like they can't speak out and not be comfortable to talk about difficult subjects. So it's important to show that your organization has zero tolerance for any of this behavior. And as we mentioned, you can consider reasonable adjustments. They will look different for different companies and different women. Even the Equality Act says that what is considered reasonable is considered on a case-by-case basis. However, apart from the things we've already mentioned, they can include changes to workload or some practical support with people's workloads. Another important case is just offering more flexible leave options. So short-term leave for particularly difficult days can help women manage their symptoms without fear of job loss or financial instability. And in general, people should have access to support such as employee assistance programs, counselings, or signposting to special services. And finally, we'll talk a lot more about the importance and benefits of peer support, but they can be incredibly helpful for people's mental health in the workplace. A lot of people are not comfortable to talk to their line manager about their struggles, and talking to someone neutral, maybe even from another part of the organization or a colleague who's close by, can be so helpful. And that can also include peer support groups, and you can even set up a specifically menopause support group in your company. So it really boils down to creating a compassionate culture where everyone is heard and everyone matters and is comfortable to speak out. So it's essential that companies create safe spaces where people can disclose their mental health problems or talk about menopause and how it affects them, and they don't have to fear the stigma. We should have those open conversations. So it's important that we empower women and managers to speak up if they want to. So some small tips is, for example, choosing a private space and starting maybe with some more general questions about the person's well-being and letting the staff member lead the conversation. It's also really important not to make any assumptions about the person's symptoms. Also, senior leaders should role model prioritizing well-being day to day. What seems like very small self-care practices can have a big impact on how staff perceive wellness within the workplace. So that includes taking breaks, setting boundaries, and being open about their own challenges. Even if we kind of have a campaign where we say that mental health matters and that your well-being is important and you should take breaks, if none of the senior leadership team follows that advice, then employees are very unlikely to feel like they're allowed to follow it as well. And finally, compassionate culture means empowering everyone. So it's important to value employee feedback and ask your own team how they want to be supported. because a compassionate culture sends a message: you matter and it is safe to speak up. So as I mentioned, we will discuss some benefits of embedding peer supporters into your organization. This can be incredibly helpful when your employees are struggling with mental health, and that especially can include symptoms of menopause. So, for example, having peer supporters can really reduce that stigma. Talking about and promoting mental health and talking about menopausal symptoms can lead to reduced stigma. And, you can train peer supporters in the effects of menopause on mental health so that there are people who can lead the conversations in the workplace. And when stigma is reduced, we're promoting mental health and talking about it openly. We create an environment that feels safe and healthy. And when people have their basic needs met, such as feeling safe, they're more likely to be more productive. It also helps people build their skills and confidence. So when people become peer supporters, they are becoming upskilled, and this can increase their sense of empowerment and feeling that they can make a difference to the people around them. So as I mentioned before, lower self-worth and self-confidence can be a very common symptom of menopause. So participating in a program that encourages being open about mental health and that allows you to help others can really boost that self-esteem. And that can also lead to improved connections and relationships between colleagues, both for peer supporters and for people in general in the workplace who know that there are people out there who can support them and that their company values mental health. And good workplace relationships are a major protective factor against burnout. And increased self-esteem and positivity about the future can also be an effect. For people who are being supported, they will find that their mental health and well-being improve. They might find access to the support they need and lead healthier lives at home and at work. So they'll feel a greater feeling of acceptance and understanding of their experiences. And by creating a peer support program or upskilling staff in-house, you're reducing costs by not having to bring in external services or trainers. This could be particularly important if your organization is seeing structural changes. So finally, where people know that their mental health is being supported, it improves culture and working environment, creating a happier and healthier workforce. So ultimately, it improves staff engagement and retention. So here at Mind and Mid Hearts, we offer a range of training and services that can aid your journey to an inclusive, mentally healthy work environment. We are made up of mental health practitioners and experts, and many of us have lived experience perspectives that we can bring to the session. So if this session has sparked ideas or energy for change, we're here to help. We offer affordable, tailored training to support teams and leaders. For example, we have mental health awareness sessions both for staff and for managers, where we help people understand mental health better and give them some useful information about how to have conversations and seek support. We also have a suicide awareness training and our peer support training, which I've already mentioned, the benefits of having peer supporters. It's just really an amazing in-depth training that gives people an understanding of mental health and how to spot signs of emotional distress. So it gives people the confidence to step in and offer the most appropriate support when it's needed. And finally, the Thriving at Work program are just our short and sweet sessions on specific topics related to the workplace, such as stress, parenting, or grief. And another way that we can support you is by providing ongoing support. So we offer psychological therapies and drop-in sessions. We can also come in for specific times, such as post-bereavement and suicide. And we can help you organize well-being days and offer mindfulness sessions and mindfulness training. And the training that's coming up that's particularly relevant is the training about menopause for managers. So today, this was just like a very quick introduction, but this is a 3-hour training that will guide HR professionals and managers for a more in-depth understanding of how important menopause can be in the context of mental health. So we'll make sure that everyone who attends is confident in recognizing and responding to poor mental health due to menopause and how to reduce that risk with practical steps. And something for staff members is our Thriving at Work Coping with the Menopause workshop webinar. It's just a 1 hour training that helps people understand the effects of the menopause and learn a range of coping strategies that help people thrive during that difficult time. So this training is coming up. So we will email everyone who has signed up for this webinar with a link, and please keep an eye on our socials. So what can you do today to improve the culture in your company and to really put menopause on the table and reduce the stigma? It's reviewing menopause policies and mental health strategy, considering your business training needs, and we're here to help if you need help. And you should consider building peer support within the organization because it can really be such a huge protective factor. And finally, always remember to have open conversations, and there is no such thing as a completely taboo subject. We need to reduce stigma around something that affects so many people, so many women, and it can have a huge effect on their mental health, on their physical health. And if we're not able to talk about it, it can be a very isolating experience. So do speak up and create that open culture in your company, because small changes can really spark big results. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for attending. And please contact us on training@mindandmidhouse.org.uk if you want to discuss your training needs or if you have any questions. Thank you.